The letter arrived on a morning so quiet it felt like the world was holding its breath. Samuel Callahan stood on the porch of his small adobe house at the edge of the desert, a cup of bitter coffee cooling in his hand, when the dust cloud appeared on the horizon. It didn't smile. Gunslingers who lived as long as Samuel had learned not to smile too early. Still, his heart beat a little faster as the rider approached. For months, he had waited for this moment. The arrival of the woman whose letters had kept him alive through long, lonely nights. His mail-order bride. His promise of a different future. Samuel Callahan was a man the border towns whispered about. Some called him a legend, others a ghost. He had crossed deserts and rivers, outrun bullets, and buried more friends than he cared to remember. Years ago, he had put his guns down and settled near the border, not far from Mexico, where the land was harsh but honest. He told himself he wanted peace. The truth was simpler and more painful, he was tired of being alone. The letters had started as a curiosity. A widow from the East, writing about hope, about faith, about building something new in a hard land. Her words were gentle but strong, like water carving stone. Samuel wrote back awkwardly at first, his sentences stiff, his emotions guarded. But slowly, the letters became the best part of his days. He imagined her voice in the wind, her laughter and the creak of his porch boards. When she finally agreed to come west and be his wife, Samuel felt something he hadn't felt since he was a boy, a future. The rider stopped at the gate, dust settling around the horse's hooves. But it wasn't the town courier. And there was no woman seated behind him, clutching a small suitcase and a heart full of dreams. Instead, a single figure dismounted, slender, alert, her dark hair pulled back tight. She wore a man's coat too big for her frame, boots worn thin, and a look in her eyes that made Samuel's hand instinctively drift toward the gun he no longer carried. "I'm looking for Samuel Callahan," she said, her accent thick but her words clear. "I'm him," Samuel replied slowly. "And you're not who I was expecting." The woman hesitated, then bowed her head slightly. "My name is Lin May." He took her place. The words hung between them, heavy as thunderclouds. Samuel felt the air leave his lungs. "Took her place," he repeated. "What does that mean?" Lin May swallowed. "The woman you were waiting for, she is dead. Bandits attacked the wagon near the river crossing. He survived because they thought I was already dead." Samuel closed his eyes. The desert seemed to spin. All those letters. All that hope. Gone, just like that. When he opened his eyes, Lin May was still there, standing straight despite the fear that flickered across her face. "Why are you here?" Samuel asked, his voice rough. "Why come to me?" "Because I promised her," Lin May said quietly. "She helped me when no one else would. I owed her my life. She said you were a good man." Samuel laughed bitterly. "A good man doesn't leave a woman dead on the road." Lin May flinched but didn't turn away. "A good man doesn't turn away a stranger either." For a long moment, neither spoke. The desert wind carried the distant sound of church bells from the Mexican town across the border, a reminder that life went on, even when hearts broke. Samuel stepped aside. "You can stay the night," he said at last. "Tomorrow, I'll take you to town. You can find your way from there." Lin May nodded, relief washing over her face. "Thank you." That night, Samuel barely slept. Memories and regrets tangled in his mind. At dawn, he found Lin May already awake, sweeping the porch with quiet efficiency. She moved like someone used to being unseen. Over the next days, one night became 2, then 3. The town was not kind to Lin May. Whispers followed her like shadows, outlaw, Chinese, dangerous. Samuel learned quickly that her past was darker than she had first admitted. She had been part of a gang that smuggled goods and people across the border. When she tried to leave, they marked her for death. "I'm not proud of what I did," she told him one evening, sitting by the fire. "But I am proud that I stopped." Samuel studied her face, lit by flame and honesty. "I saw not an outlaw, but a woman fighting to become someone better." The ranch began to change with her presence. Lin Mei repaired fences with steady hands, cooked meals that filled the house with unfamiliar but comforting scents, and spoke softly to the land as if it could hear her. Slowly, Samuel found himself laughing again. Slowly, the silence that had haunted him lost its grip. But the past has a way of finding those who run from it. They came at dusk, 5 men, guns drawn, faces hard. Samuel recognized the look immediately. Minhu had already decided who deserved to die. She belongs to us, their leader said, pointing at Lin Mei. Step aside, old man. Samuel stepped forward instead. Sis under my roof. That makes her my responsibility. The leader sneered. You think one retired gunslinger can stop us? Samuel glanced at Lin Mei. She was trembling, but her eyes were fierce. In that moment, he understood something he had spent his whole life avoiding, that love wasn't about who you planned for. It was about who you chose to protect. He raised his hands slowly. Take me instead. Lin Mei gasped. No. Samuel turned to her, his voice gentle. This is what kindness looks like, he said. Sometimes it costs everything. The leader laughed, until a shot rang out from the hills. Tenanote. The men scattered in panic as riders emerged, townsfolk and Mexican ranchers alike, drawn by word of trouble. They stood shoulder to shoulder, guns ready, not out of hatred, but out of solidarity. The outlaws fled. When the dust settled, Lin Mei fell to her knees, sobbing. Samuel knelt beside her, unsure how to comfort her, until she reached for his hand. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, I did, he replied. Because you're not a replacement. You're a gift that didn't know I needed. Months later, under a wide desert sky, Samuel and Lin Mei stood together as the priest spoke words of union in Spanish and English, blessings crossing borders just as their lives had. The town gathered, no longer whispering, but smiling. Samuel never received the bride he waited for. Instead, he found something deeper, redemption, forgiveness, and a love born not from expectation, but from compassion. And in that harsh land between nations, their story became a quiet reminder, sometimes, the wrong arrival is exactly the right miracle.